Good afternoon, everybody, here in Ede and also the people who are watching online. We have about 100 people watching us online. Before we start, the program, we divided in two parts. First part before the break, and that is dealing with the 21 gigawatt roadmap. And after the break, we're going to dive into the ecology and into the roadmap beyond 2030. That's for the program. My name is Ruud de Bruyne, work for the Netherlands Enterprise Agency and your host this afternoon. Let me see. I would like to start by asking Eva de Lede and Joost Vermeulen on stage. Eva, Joost, you are both head of units at the ministry. What does that mean, and what are your roles there?
Yeah, we're both head of unit offshore wind within the ministry, and that's because we were one team for offshore wind, but we became too big, so we split into two teams, and I'm heading the market team, which is focusing on the tenders, but also on the international policy developments and on the long-term developments.
That's correct. Yeah. And I'm leading the team that deals with spatial issues and the roadmap. So we are responsible for the roadmap, for the timing of all the projects, but also in solving all the spatial issues concerning other functions and other values at sea. For example, fisheries, navigation, also military activities. And we're also responsible for timely preparation of the wind farm site decisions. So that's basically how we have divided our teams and our responsibilities.
Eva, since our last workshop, a lot of things happened. We had elections, and on the 2nd of July, we will have a new government, and in their coalition agreement, because there is certainly a new wind blowing, in their coalition agreement they say there is a focus on achieving greater energy independence and producing our own sustainable energy. What does it mean for offshore wind energy?
Well, we don't know everything yet. What we do know is that first there was a bit of a risk, and we were all a bit reluctant on where the wind would blow, as you say, because one of the parties of the coalition agreement mentioned repetitively that they wanted to put the energy policies through the shredder. Luckily, the agreement mentioned that all energy policies will remain as they were. We are still committed to the climate goals, and also that offshore wind is preferred over onshore wind. So those developments make us a little bit more happy to still look forward on a bright future for offshore wind. There might be a switch with the policies where there's more attention towards local development and also employment, those kind of issues. But we still see a bright future for offshore wind.
Joost, I counted the word fish in that coalition agreement 32 times. Fish and fishery and fishermen and etc. And it says in the coalition agreement there will be better access to the North Sea, new ports or something like that, I don't know, with ample space for fishing. And they're going to identify large areas to be designated as fishing fields. And windmills can still be placed at sea instead of on land, but with priority ensuring space for fishing. What does that mean?
That's a good question. I think that's for all of us still to see, but I mean, the fisheries sector is quite an eloquent sector, and I think their voice is now loud and clear also in this headline agreement, if you can, if that's the correct term for in English. I think will ask from all of us, I think, an ultimate effort in trying to find ways in which fisheries and offshore wind developments can go hand in hand. And if that's not the case, what kind of other solutions then would be possible? So I think that's something that will be asked from us and all of you also to think about. On the other hand, as Eva said, and it also was written down in the headline agreement, and I think also last week when there was a debate in Parliament about our the budget of our ministry, there was a motion filed by the 4 parties that are now forming this new coalition, and they asked us to already prepare ways in which what was written down in this headline agreement to write that down in a more elaborate government agreement that still needs to be written. But what they mentioned was that we should organize it in such a way that the ambition for offshore wind is not delayed. Okay. And that gave me some courage that there will be, that we can find ways in taking care also of the fishery interest, but also in carrying on with the rollout of offshore wind as we have planned.
I think that these words are satisfying a lot of people here and online, because there are a lot of questions. What is this going to mean for us? And thank you. And you may give them a warm applause. Something else happened between the last workshop and now, and that was last week when we announced the winners of the IJmuiden Ver Alpha and Gamma tender. And of course, we have them here. So may I first ask Bart Sanen on the stage. Bart. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
But you work for APG, which is sitting on a fund of over 500 billion euros, something like that?
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, we represent a lot of Dutch pension fund money.
Yeah, what are you doing with all that money?
Well, we need to invest it responsibly,
yes.
And we can do that with a very long-term perspective. And where we can, we also like to make an impact, not only generate a financial return with the investments that we make, but also making a societal impact and generating a societal return with those
yes.
investments.
You formed a consortium with SSE Renewables called Noordzeker. What are you going to do?
Well, we're super excited that we're able to construct Alpha now. And we put in probably 1.5 years of effort already. And we celebrated for a day, and then we realized there's a lot of work ahead of us now. And that will be, we'll have enough to do for the coming years.
Okay. So, are you going to show us something, or?
Yeah. Well, I don't have slides.
Okay.
I can speak a little bit about Noordzeker. I can speak a bit about the plans that we have. And I'd like to close off with a small clip that also includes our partner Naturalis.
Okay.
Yeah, so thanks very much. We're super excited to have won, and I'm proud to represent Noordzeker today. There's been a big team working on this for a very long time. I'm super proud of that team, and thank both of the teams that put in a lot of effort, both on Alpha and Beta. I also wanted to express a word of gratitude to the Ministry of Economic Affairs and RVO, Ruud and team, and also TenneT, and we look very much forward to continue working with you over the next years to come. I also wanted to express a word of congratulations to Vattenfall and CIP for putting in the winning bid on Beta. Very well done by you. So indeed, I was going to speak a little bit about Noordzeker, which you preempted some of that already. But indeed, Noordzeker is an initiative of pension fund ABP in close cooperation with and in partnership with SSE Renewables. We both have different roles in that 50-50 consortium. ABP is a long-term investor in, amongst others, infrastructure, and that is the team that I'm responsible for. We really want to make a long-term commitment to making those investments also from an energy transition perspective and making a genuine impact on Dutch society. SSE Renewables is a very large developer that intends to expand its activities out of the UK and Ireland. This is actually the very first project that SSE Renewables has won outside of its home market. But it does already have a lot of experience in realizing wind farms on the North Sea, as a matter of fact, including also Dogger Bank, which is a 3.6 gigawatt project that they are realizing. If I speak a little bit about the alpha bid that we submitted, really the mission of that bid is to minimize the ecological footprint of the wind farm and to stimulate the biodiversity in the wind farm. And we do aim to do that with a range of measures that will minimize the impact on birds and on marine mammals. We will install a lot of artificial reefs in the wind farm to stimulate the biodiversity. But what I am personally also very proud of is the cooperation with Naturalis. And together with Naturalis, we will implement a living lab in the wind farm, and that means with that living lab, we are going to monitor biodiversity in the wind farm on a very wide range of species, and we'll do that with a very high frequency. So we will basically, what it means is we're going to do real-time monitoring of the biodiversity in the wind farm, collect a tremendous amount of data on that, and it will give us a really improved understanding of the biodiversity and how it develops in that wind farm. So there's a lot of steps that we still need to go through before we can actually implement that, and we as the Noordzeker Consortium are going to keep you appraised of all those steps, so please check out the website and we'll share updates with you along the road. And I did also want to show you a small video clip, but before we do that, I did also want to invite, if you have any good suggestions for Noordzeker or you wish to establish a further collaboration, do reach out to the SSE team. I think somewhere here, Alwin de Jong is there from the SSE team. You can also reach out to myself on that. Thanks very much.
The movie. Can we start the movie? Here it comes.
Zee is een heel bijzondere regio in Nederland, zeker de Noordzee. Het is denk ik een van de belangrijkste economische regio's in de afgelopen jaren. En gek genoeg weten we eigenlijk heel weinig van wat er nou precies in de zee zit. Ik ben Maaike van den Kamp, ik ben directeur onderwijs en onderzoek en plaatsvangend algemeen directeur bij Naturalis. We zijn afhankelijk van biodiversiteit vanwege bijvoorbeeld ons voedsel. Ons voedsel komt uit de bodem, komt uit het water. Dus niet alleen voor voedsel, maar voor heel veel economische voorzieningen zijn we afhankelijk van biodiversiteit. En we zijn ook graag in de natuur, dus we vinden het ook belangrijk dat biodiversiteit in en om ons heen is. Nederland heeft nog steeds een hele belangrijke biodiversiteit. Als je kijkt naar de Noordzee, dan kennen we nu denk ik ongeveer 1200 soorten die in en om de Noordzee leven. Maar onze verwachting is dat ongeveer het dubbele, zo niet het drievoudige zou kunnen zijn. Dus dat betekent dat we nog heel veel soorten niet kennen. Je ziet natuurlijk nu, zeker onder druk van klimaatverandering, wordt het steeds urgenter om te kijken wat er eigenlijk nou precies gebeurt. Om het ook beter te kunnen monitoren, ook beter te kunnen beheren. Het is natuurlijk een hele spannende tijd in de energie. Iedereen merkt dat we eigenlijk naar andere energiebronnen toe moeten. Daar worstelen we enorm mee. We willen heel graag alles blijven doen en gebruiken wat we nu doen. En tegelijkertijd zie je ook dat in ieder geval met name natuurlijk de fossiele industrie op de lange termijn niet meer houdbaar is. Ik zie veel kansen, ook als het gaat over het daadwerkelijk bouwen van het windmolenpark zelf. Enerzijds natuurlijk de molen zelf en kunnen we ervoor zorgen dat op dat noemen we harde substraat wellicht andere soorten of nieuwe soorten zich kunnen vestigen. En tegelijkertijd zou je natuurlijk ook nu zien dat er hele grote delen van de Noordzee dan minder verstoord worden. Waardoor dus ook, dat noemen we dan zacht substraat, ook heel veel gelegenheid zou kunnen bieden voor soorten om of weer terug te keren of nieuwe soorten om zich te vestigen. Als Noordzeker uiteindelijk het windmolenpark mag bouwen, dan biedt het een unieke gelegenheid om de biodiversiteit op een hele andere manier in kaart te brengen en te kunnen monitoren. En dus ook voor te kunnen zorgen dat dit windmolenpark optimaal bijdraagt aan het ecosysteem en niet te veel schade toebrengt. De grote droom van Naturalis is om te zorgen dat waar je ook bent, waar je ook staat in Nederland, waar je ook bent op zee, om te weten hoe het staat met de biodiversiteit. Dat noemen we real-time biodiversiteit monitoren. Dat wil je ook eigenlijk op elk tijdstip kunnen doen. Dat is nog best een uitdaging. Daar gaan we met partners aan werken en binnen Noordzeker gaan we daar een eerste stap in zetten.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you very
Bart.
much.
Then the second half of IJmuiden Ver, Irene Geerbeks and Anders Skaya. May I ask you to come on the stage? And also for you, congratulations. Congratulations. Irene,
Yeah.
I tried to show that short movie some of your colleagues put on LinkedIn. We didn't manage. But that was filmed when we were calling you.
Yeah.
And your colleague, he smashed his phone on the floor. Has he already a new phone?
No, we didn't smash it. But we were ecstatic.
Yeah,
yes.
that was
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
good visible,
Yeah.
yes.
And
yes.
I think we still are.
Okay, what are you going to do?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I can go first. So I'm Anders Skajo. I'm from Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, where I work as our market director for the Netherlands. Irene, maybe you want to present yourself first?
Yeah,
or,
sure, thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Irene Geerbeks. I'm Market Development Director for Offshore Wind in the Netherlands with Vattenfall.
Yeah.
And together we were joining hands, forming a consortium for the Zeevonk bid as a 50-50 partnership.
Exactly, and so from henceforth we shall be known as Zeevonk. Yeah, what's this project all about? Perhaps we can just jump to the next slide.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, so of course the cornerstone of this project is a 2 gigawatt offshore wind farm. This is a huge step in itself to build a 2 gigawatt wind farm in the Netherlands. It will be by far the biggest wind farm in the country. We have some neighbors to the south that will be equally big, Noordzeker, very happy about that. But that is just a monumental effort alone to build a 2 gigawatt wind farm, and we're very, very happy to get this opportunity together with Vattenfall, and I think we can realize that because we are bringing together two teams with a lot of offshore experience, so we feel confident that we can, well, we know we can realize this project, of course, in time and budget and so on, of course. 2 gigawatt is a lot of power. There's no doubt about that in a system that I think consumes about 14 or 15 gigawatts of power. That is a very substantial amount of power. And therefore, integrating an offshore wind farm into the energy system is key. In fact, I think we can speak long about this. How to integrate this amount of power into an energy system is just a massive challenge, and the Ministry and RVO had already, I think for quite a while, been on this track and thinking about that's very, very important. And our contribution to that is to put a very large power-to-X facility in the port of Rotterdam. 1 gigawatt of power consumption will be sitting there right next to the landing point of where the power is coming in. I don't think it's any secret that the hydrogen world is still in its infancy, right? We still need to see it grow in the way that many of us are hoping that it will. We have a big portfolio of projects in the power-to-X space, but this one is actually, I think, now our leading project, because this has everything. It has absolutely the perfect location for this. It is at the most strategic location in Northwest Europe. It has all the infrastructure available. It is sitting right next to the electrical landing point of all the power. It has a lot of natural hydrogen offtake in its immediate vicinity. So we thought this is the one where we want to lean in and take some risk, but produce something that we truly believe in for the future energy system of the Netherlands. And that's why we put in this bid in this way. quite simple. There was a 1 gigawatt system integration requirement. We just put in one massive factory to build a lot of renewable hydrogen. But there are more assets in this system. Actually, it gets even more exciting than that. It's a super complicated integrated system. Maybe you want to say something about
Yeah,
the system
sure,
here.
thanks. Yeah, so there was another assignment or ask in the TenneT criteria, and that was on floating solar. And we also decided to commit to that and to add a 50 megawatt floating solar system, fully integrated into the offshore wind farm, making use of the same grid connection. And so we are optimizing the usage of the grid, and we're overall improving the annual energy production of the offshore wind farm. And 50 megawatts, it sounds really small for us offshorees, but in terms of offshore solar, this is really the first of its size and kind. It's actually, it's super big, and we're really excited to take this forward. Another topic that's very close to our heart is the ecological impact of offshore wind farms, and as Bart just explained, and of course what Noordzeke is putting a lot of effort in is reducing our ecological impact and improving biodiversity, and we're really glad to also in Zeevonk have the opportunity to contribute to that. So we will be applying state-of-the-art noise mitigation measures to reduce the disturbance to harbor porpoises, well below the allowance by the regulations, to pave the way for the wider rollout and make sure that we actually sort of get to our final destination without going across the ecological borders or the amounts that the ecological system can absorb. Another very important element is circularity and responsible business conduct. We truly believe that this is critical for a successful offshore wind rollout on the very large scale, and taking steps now is crucial to make sure that we do the right things, and we start doing them now. And creating insights and transparency is the very first fundamental step towards raising the industry bar of what we do in terms of responsible business conduct and circularity. So we're very proudly supporting that development and trying to pull and push the wider industry to state-of-the-art offshore wind development.
Yeah, I think that's sort of all the elements of this bid and project. And thank you to the Ministry and RVO for the trust that you have placed in us. Of course, that's a very big trust, and we are now looking very much. I think you are already in your mind sort of onto Gamma, but we are very much now in beta.
I understand that.
We will
But
be
there are
focusing
also people in the room who didn't win this tender and might be.
I know how that goes. Yeah. No,
So,
so we're glad to move on, but thank you
Yes.
for having us. It was really great to present Zeevonk to you, and happy to take any questions or discussions in the break or after.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Last week I was in Brussels during the European Sustainable Energy Week in a couple of panels, and they were very much discussing about non-price criteria. So I mentioned this project as an example and said, well, a 1 gigawatt power to X and a 50 megawatt floating solar is not exactly non-price. It's quite an investment, so you should stop that and call it like we do, a comparative assessment. But as Irene said, we are already looking to the next tender, and I would like to ask Frédéric de Grooy to come on stage. Frédéric, you are involved in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Change. To prepare that next tender, what's going to happen?
Well, a lot, and I'm going to tell you bit about it today. But first I would like to start with congratulating Zeevonk and Noordzeker with winning the tenders for IJmuiden Ver Alpha and Beta. And can imagine that it feels a bit like a birthday party here with all the congrats, but it's important that we also celebrate that milestone. But at the same time, we as the ministry and RVO, and I can imagine some of you as well, are already preparing the next tender round for IJmuiden Ver Gamma and Nederwiek I. And today I'm going to tell you a bit more about that. You see if and I will start with a bit of general information about these sites, and also I will tell you a bit about the capacity of the sites. Before I move on to the tender procedures and the planning that these tenders will follow. And after sharing all this information with you, there are also some things that I would like to hear your thoughts about. So I'll come back to that at the end of my presentation. Well, as Eva said, we're really happy that the upcoming government still maintains the goals for offshore wind energy. But it also means that we have a lot of work to do all together here in this room. And the next big step in all the work are the projects for IJmuiden Ver Gamma and Nederwiek I. And I will tell you a bit more about these sites in general. So the current capacity of these sites is at least 2 gigawatts, and we're also investigating if overplanting will be possible, up to 2.3 gigawatts. And both these sites will be connected to land via DC connection, either to land at the Maasvlakte in the case of IJmuiden Ver Gamma, or in Borselen in the case of Nederwiek I. And I think that's the general information for now. If you want to know anything more, please have a look at the website of RVO. But as I just mentioned, the current site is still at least 2 gigawatts, but we're also looking into smaller plot sizes. Many of you raised their concerns about the business case and the financial risks that are involved, and mentioned that smaller plot sizes would be therefore maybe more feasible or more realistic to realize. Avery also mentioned it in the research they did on the market conditions. Well, and all your concerns were well received, and that's why we're looking into changing the site sizes to 1 gigawatt size and capacity. But we cannot make that decision yet because we really like to really think about all the consequences of changing the size of the sites at this stage. And that's why we're looking into all the consequences, and I will explain you a bit more about 3 of them. And the first one is the impact on the planning. As you may know, we're already working on the offshore wind farm site decisions and all the studies that we have to do to get to the site decisions, such as the environmental impact assessment. And currently all those studies still use a site of a size of 2 gigawatt. And if we change the size at this moment in time, that would also mean that we have to conduct some studies again or do some parts over, and that could have an impact on the planning. And not only on the planning of the site decisions, but then eventually also on the planning of the tenders and of the commissioning of the wind farm, even possibly, depending on how much delay this would cause. So we're really looking into the whole chain of site decision up to the grid connection to see what the effect would be. A second thing it could have an impact on is on the site decisions itself, on the content of the site decision. For instance, Nederwiek I, we always assumed that would be a 2 gigawatt site. And if we change that now, it also means that we have to draw the border somewhere. That could also impact the LCOE, for instance, of these sites, but also maybe other stakeholders that work or live in that area, in the case of ecology. So that's also something we're taking into account. Finally, the site decisions and the tenders, etc., that's also really our work, well, on the short term, but these projects have a long-term or multiple-year realization phase, and also the the commissioning of the wind farm, especially in combination with the commissioning of the TenneT platform, can face some challenges if we change the plot size, as 2 wind farm operators then should work on the same TenneT platform. And to prevent issues later on in time, we also would like to really get a good look at all the mutual dependencies and how we should distribute the risk between TenneT and the wind farm operators to make sure that we don't have issues while you're already commissioning the wind farm. Well, we hope to have all this information this summer and then make a decision, and we will then, of course, inform you about it. And because of all these challenges, we're looking into several options. So that could be, fortunately, keeping the 2 times 2 gigawatt capacity of the sites. It could be splitting both sites into 2 times 1 gigawatt, or it could be a combination. For instance, that one site will remain 2 gigawatts and the other one would be split into 2 times 1 gigawatt. Now let's move on to the tender, the part I know most of. Before I will tell you a bit more about how the tender will look like, let me explain how we got to the decision, because our minister announced in May that we will permit IJmuiden Ver Gamma and Nederwiek I again through a comparative assessment with financial bid, just like we did at IJmuiden Ver Alpha and Beta, but also Hollandse West. We spoke to many of you last winter to discuss the market conditions for offshore wind, but also your thoughts on the tender procedure that we would like to follow, or should follow actually. I'm really thankful for the input that you sent us and gave us. That was really helpful. And we also asked Avery to conduct an analysis of the market situation and conditions. And they also advised a comparative assessment. And finally, we also had discussions and conversations with our colleagues within the ministry, but also with other ministries, for instance, with the Ministry of Agriculture, to discuss social challenges we face, for example, like ecology and system integration. And based on all this information, we thought that the comparative assessment with financial bid was the most appropriate procedure to follow. At the same time, a lot of you raised concerns about the business case of offshore wind, and even said that subsidy might be necessary, especially if the demand of electricity doesn't really keep up with the pace of the rollout of offshore wind. And we do get those concerns. To be honest, we hope we don't need to use any subsidy, but we're also realistic, and that's why we're also working out a procedure with subsidy as a backup option. And at the same time, subsidy has a lot of challenges, and ideally we would have combined it with a comparative assessment so that we can also stimulate quality, but unfortunately that is not possible, and that's why we keep it as a backup option and first focus on the comparative assessment with financial bids. Now let me tell you a bit about the criteria that we will add to the comparative assessment with financial bid. There are 3 mandatory criteria, that is the security realization, contribution to the energy system, and the financial bid. But we will also add some additional criteria. And most likely, just as in case of IJmuiden Ver Alpha and Beta, we will add some criteria that focus on ecology and on system integration. And something else we're looking into are circularity and international responsible business conduct. These 2 topics were criteria in the tenders for IJmuiden Ver Alpha and Beta. But as many of you already became a member of the IRBC Covenant, for instance, we're also looking into if it's legally possible, if we can add them to the offshore wind farm site decisions. And if not, they will probably become part of the tender again. And finally, something we're looking into is multi-use, if we can facilitate or stimulate that in the tender, but only if it doesn't negatively impact the rollout of offshore wind. And it's also important that the business case of offshore wind can handle it. Today I will not go into much detail on these criteria. We're still working out the criteria and the design of the of the tender. I can imagine a lot of you were hoping for more information, but unfortunately I cannot give it to you at this moment. But that also brings me to the planning and when we can share a bit more information. And I will start with the planning of the grid connection. I will not go into detail as I believe TenneT will also tell you a bit more about that later on, but I think the most important is that the expected commissioning of the grid connection for IJmuiden Ver Gamma is at the end of 2030, and the expected grid commissioning for Nederwiek I is mid-2031. And something important that we changed is that we changed the time between the milestones. So that means that you have a bit more flexibility to commission the wind farm in combination with the TenneT platform. Then I get to the most critical path in our planning, and that is the planning for the wind farm site decisions. And we cannot have a tender without a site decision. It lays down all the conditions under which a wind farm can be built and operated. But as we mentioned in our letter to Parliament, and I think what you're well aware of it as well, is that we face some challenges, for instance, in terms of the ecological framework, but also the spatial integration of the wind farms. And that means that that can have quite an impact on the planning of publishing the wind farm site decisions. And therefore the planning I'm presenting you today is our optimistic planning. I truly hope we can meet this planning, but at the same time, well, if anything happens and we have to change the planning, we will let you know, of course, but hopefully, I hope it's not the case. But if everything goes according to plan, we expect to publish the draft site decisions after the summer and before the end of the year, so that we can publish the final wind farm site decisions in the first quarter of 2025. And that brings me to the final part of our planning, the tenders. The planning of our tenders follows a sort of the same planning as the planning of the wind farm site decisions. As I just mentioned, we cannot have a tender without a wind farm site decision. So that means that we plan to publish the draft ministerial orders at the end of this year, so that we can publish the final ministerial orders at the end of the first quarter of 2025, or maybe, depending on the publishing date of the site decisions, at the beginning of the second quarter of 2025, so that we can close the tenders in September 2025. And we're currently working on drafting the ministerial orders. We just started with that, but we cannot really do it without your help. You always have a lot of great ideas, so we would also like to hear your thoughts on that. And that brings me to the final slides. We already received quite some input from many of you, so I'd like to thank you for everything you've sent us so far. But I can imagine you even have more ideas, or maybe some other parties that haven't reached out yet, so feel free to reach out. And we are especially interested in your ideas with regards to three topics. The first one is, of course, how the tender should look like. We're now starting to design the comparative assessment of financial bids, so we're curious to hear your thoughts on which criteria we should add to which tender, but also how we should design these criteria. And the second thing is that I think TenneT will also tell you a bit more about it later on, but as we change the planning a bit of the commissioning of the wind farm, while we still have the ambition to reach our goals, and TenneT has bought a lot of platforms to be able to transport the electricity to onshore. It also means that TenneT has to already start engineering their platform and their grid connection, and that could also mean that they have to make some assumptions at a certain stage. And we would like to prevent any wrong assumptions and really make sure that the grid connection is engineered optimally. So that's why we're looking into if we can prescribe, for instance, a project certification. I've mentioned the exact name in the slides. I don't know any details about it, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to TenneT. But also some engineering deadlines. And TenneT will come up with a list of crucial deadlines, and would like to see together with you if these deadlines seems feasible, or if that's not the case, we don't want to prescribe any deadlines that you cannot reach. And finally, as I mentioned, we're still looking into the consequences of splitting the wind farm sites, and we're also curious about your thoughts on these consequences. For instance, if you would like to still apply, hand in bundled applications, so that means that you can apply to 2 wind farms at the same time and combine your applications. But we're also curious how you see the interdependencies with TenneT during the commissioning phase. And finally, also, as I mentioned, if we split the sites, that would probably have impact on planning of the wind farm site decisions. But at the same time, we would like to prevent as much delay as possible at the end of the delivering of the wind farm. So I'm also curious to hear how much delay of the wind farm site decisions would still be feasible if we do not change the commissioning dates. If you have any thoughts on these topics, feel free to reach out to one of us during the networking event at the end of today. But I can imagine that you also like to think about it a bit more, so you can always reach out via email. It's also possible to schedule a conversation with us and with RVO. If you would like to talk to us or have any ideas you can share to the RVO tender team of Geert en Boerhaven at RVO, but you can also send an email to the general email address of was@rvo.nl. That's it for now. Thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. You may. For the people here, you may have some questions. There's some time for that. And for the people who are watching online, I put back on this slide because there is an email address, woz@rvo.nl. If you have any questions, send an email. There are people who moderate that, and we will try to answer that. So, are there any questions? Here in the front.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question about a backup plan. Is that something that will be at the same time as the tender as you presented, or is it something that will follow after the tender if the first round will not succeed?
That is something that will follow after the comparative assessment, if the comparative assessment, the financial bid wouldn't succeed.
Okay. How much time would you think that will be?
We don't know the exact planning yet, but we hope we can prepare as much as possible so that if in a fortunate event that we do need subsidy, we can really do that tender really quickly so that the delivering of the wind farm doesn't delay too much. But if we're still looking into the planning, so if we have a bit more information, we'd also like to discuss it with you, with all the parties here involved, how quickly after a comparative assessment we could do the procedure with subsidy.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, also on my behalf, thank you very much for the presentation and the milestones in your very nice overview. My name is Douwe Blakiera. I'm working for BP, and I have one question, and that is for a lot of developers, the most important milestone for these beauty contests or comparative assessments is the draft regulation, or the table as we call it.
Okay.
You shared the milestone there of the third quarter this year, but do we get a draft of the table with some ideas around that already earlier to discuss more in detail the discussions around the table and the criteria?
That's a good question. Something we can share is already that we would like to add a criteria in terms of ecology and system integration. And we're still looking into that. And I think it would be a good idea if we can share a bit more on our thoughts after the summer, in terms of which criteria we will definitely add and which ones we will not add. I think it's a good idea. I think we have to come back to at what moment would be a good timing.
Okay. One last question. There is one online.
Yes, there's one from our online. Can you give insight in the likelihood of site investing criteria for IJmuiden Ver Gamma or Nederwiek I?
Could you repeat the question? I didn't.
Can you give insight in the likelihood of site investigation criteria for IJmuiden Ver Gamma or Nederwiek I?
I'm not sure if I completely understand it. Site investigation criteria. I can imagine that they mean the site characterization studies, or
Yeah, we will take
system investigation. Sorry,
system integration.
System integration. Yeah, this is something we're still looking into. For instance, we're looking into the connection with the onshore hydrogen development. That's all I can share at this moment, that we're looking into it, and after the summer we hope we can share some more thoughts.
Okay, I think we have to continue the program now, but if you have any further questions, there will be...
You can always reach out.
You can always reach out. There will be discussions organized, and you can always send an email to woz@rvo.nl. Frederik, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Time for the next part, and for that I would like to invite on stage Camille van der Hout, Sebastiaan Admiraal, and Matthé Breider. You may take a seat, and I will give you some water. There's no wine yet, but it's still early.
This will do.
So a glass of water is all I can offer you. So, for those of you who have slides, there's the clicker. Camille, may I start with you? 2022, the roadmap was a little bit expanded, but there was also a shortage. We didn't know exactly where those last 4.7 gigawatt it was should be built. Do you know what's going to happen right now?
Yes. Well, let's move on to, this one. Yes. Yes, Ruud, thank you for your question. In April this year, we sent a parliamentary letter, and in this letter we included a choice for the second part of the roadmap, the 21 gigawatt roadmap. And listening to the previous speakers, I realized now that basically what we've successfully concluded, as far as the tender is concerned, is the 11 gigawatt roadmap, which was originally planned in 2018, with one extra, which is ten noorden van de Waddeneilanden, which is moved on in the schedule. So that's in planning. It's later now, and I will get back to that because it's a special now concerning hydrogen. But basically, we've successfully concluded that part. And with IJmuiden Ver Gamma and Nederwiek I and Nederwiek II, The first 6 gigawatts of the 21 gigawatts roadmap was already clear. And now what we communicated in the parliamentary letter in April is that the second part, we will use the wind farm sites Nederwiek I and Wind 1. And then finally, Hollands Kust West 8 is also still in the running. So basically that's the main message of the parliamentary letter.
Now we heard a lot about the planning that was also mentioned in that letter. What's going to happen?
Lots of things are influencing the planning, and I would like to highlight one, and that's the extended timeline, which Frederik also mentioned already, the extended timeline between several milestones. And these milestones are also included in the developmental framework, the ontwikkelkader. And on request of many offshore wind farm operators, there was a concern that the time was too short between these milestones. So together with TenneT and the ministry, and in consultation with the sector, we decided to change this planning. Yes, thank you. Although this planning does not, I think Sebastian can comment more, but you're also going to talk about it in your presentation.
Yeah.
Because the milestones are not mentioned here in this. It's a little bit more in detail. Or here.
There are a lot of details, but
yeah,
don't worry, we will share the slide afterwards. So
yeah.
You already mentioned TenneT van der Wadden. That is now one of the sites designated for hydrogen demonstration project. There are 2 hydrogen demonstration projects. Where and when? What's going to happen?
Well, obviously, as was also already mentioned before, hydrogen is going to be a very important enabler of the energy transition, and it's going to help us to bring the energy produced offshore onshore. So there's big plans for hydrogen. However, at this moment, we are still, the industry is still in its infancy. So production offshore and transportation, we know very little about it still. So that's why we have 2 demonstration projects, and these are going to be the stepping stones in learning more about hydrogen production and transportation. And the first demonstration project is going to be connected to the Hollands Kust Noord offshore platform, and will be at 30 to 50 megawatts and electrolyzer, and then a connection onshore, so it's to bring the hydrogen onshore. And the tender for this project is going to be in 2025, and the realization in 2030. And then the second demonstration project will be in the one I already mentioned, the wind farm area ten noorden van de Waddeneilanden. And there we will tender a 500 megawatt electrolyzer, and this will be, the tender will probably open in 2027 with a realization date in 2033. So those are the hydrogen stepping stones.
Okay, let's go back to that planning. Sebastian, you work for TenneT.
Yes.
Squeezing out the DC supply chain. What's happening there?
Yeah, well, that's thanks. Actually, we wanted to make 2 points on the current planning, as you see, and I have to press this one right, because if I do the wrong one, everything turns dark. I was told,
well,
so
only the screen.
Only
so
the screen. All right. So no panic. So actually 2 points. One will be on the installation timelines. Camille already mentioned, and Frederik as well. So we extended the time between what we call milestone 1 and milestone 2. That's the installation time for the offshore wind farms. And the second, also one Frederik already mentioned, that's making sure that the tender planning still matches with the planning of TenneT. We also have some slides on that. So the first one is the extension what we have on the offshore installation. Now, from a TenneT perspective, our job is almost done. So when we reach milestone 1, the platform should be ready to receive power. That's also what we call internally this milestone, ready to receive power. Now we can actually do that in 4 months. No, don't worry, it will not be 4 months. So it's extended now from a set of projects to 9 months. This includes mechanical cable pulling, so that means actually that the cable, although we don't connect it, we can already put it inside of the platform. And for other platforms, it will be 12 months. So that's a huge extension from what is now currently 6 months. Of course, we can be selfish about it and say, no, 4 months, because it makes our projects a little bit more expensive. But that would be very short-sighted. We also have, in TenneT, we have a program to run in general. So that means if we're stuck on the first platform and we have a runaway planning and it doesn't work in 6 months, we can fool ourselves and say, yeah, but 6 months is 6 months. We're stuck on that particular platform. We need to move to the next one to actually make sure that everyone is in the end connected, all the way from IJmuiden to Door de Wind and maybe even beyond. So that's why it's also important for us why we extended this. The second one, that's the challenging of the timelines. Now, what you can see here is a typical timeline of a project. So that starts with requirements, probably you recognize this, engineering, building, and then installation at sea. What we ideally have is, of course, that we receive the interface specifications right around here, right? So in the phase we call requirements, we can include it into the engineering, etc. For IJmuiden Alpha and Beta, we are roughly here. This means that if you count back for us as a platform builder, this timeline is roughly 6 years. So if you count back, yes, we already started for IJmuiden Alpha and Beta already. For Zeevonk and Noordzeker, first of all, congratulations. But you're joining already a running project. That's the point there. If we, shortly after the congratulations, we would like to know what your interface will be. This problem, of course, as you can also see in the planning.
We do have a meeting room if you want.
Yeah. I could clearly get to business very fast. Of course, what we would like to do as soon as possible, and you can also see it on the tender planning. This problem will increase over time, so it will be relatively later and later. Of course, our platforms are also stacked like roof tiles, but there's 1 year at the end, between the milestones at the end of the project, but there's more than 1 year between the tender dates. In the end, what we want to prevent is that this arrow, what you see, is shifting more and more to your right. And that's costing us money. So if you think, oh yeah, but I need some more time for to think about my interface, etc. Yeah, at a certain moment we will be pushing you harder, but there will be also a moment that we will not be so flexible. That's exactly what Frederik already told, because we have to make assumptions on building stuff, and if it comes to worst, even installing stuff. So that's the point I would like to make. So if you're a winner of one of the tenders, we will be pushing and get us as soon as possible with us in contact about your interface. For us, it's really important. You're jumping on a running train from our perspective.
That's a clear message, Sebastian.
Thanks.
Something else, there's a lot going on in the second part of this workshop. We will also talk about this infrastructure plan for the North Sea, which is going into the direction of creating a kind of meshed grid. One of the first steps is the Lion Link. How is that related to the roadmap?
Yeah, the Lion Link that will be combined with Nederwiek I. Actually, what will happen is that Nederwiek I, from a market perspective, they will be sitting in an offshore bidding zone, as it is called. As TenneT, we published a blueprint for this offshore bidding zone end of April. So I don't know exactly, I don't have the website, but please Google offshore bidding zone TenneT, and it was the first hit you will get on Google. So please read it through. Also inviting feedback on that, what you think about it.
Okay, thank you. Going to Matthé.
Yes.
Matthé, what you and your team are doing is quite visible on marine traffic.
Yes, it is indeed.
What are you doing?
Yeah, well, actually, you thought you were the front runner, but I think we are actually. So we are
Sure,
working
they started earlier. Yeah,
much more ahead.
much
indeed.
earlier.
Do we have an expert commission to decide who is?
Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, at the moment, we're working very hard on different wind farm zones. So it's actually on IJmuiden Ver Gamma, on Nederwiek, on Wind, but actually also on the new search area 6-7. At this moment, we are finishing the site investigations for IJmuiden Ver Gamma. At the end of this year, there will be also a series of webinars conducting for this. You see, well, on the lower end of the screen, indeed, some photographs of the lab testing we are doing at this moment for IJmuiden Ver Gamma, but also for Nederwiek already. But our ground modeling is a little bit delayed, but so we are actually happy that the timeline is shifting a little bit, so we can finish in early next year for this ground modeling. And at this moment, the Fugro Synergy is working very hard on the geotechnical campaign for Nederwiek. So that's running right now. On the left-hand side, you see the Normand Mermaid working on lot 1 for the CPTs. Yes, and this is actually a picture for the mid-ocean campaigns. It's also, we have now about 10 buoys running, or actually 5 campaigns, not 10 buoys actually running, because they're a little bit out of order, more of them. But on Nederwiek, you see the picture on the left-hand or the right-hand side for you, where RPS is conducting some mid-ocean campaigns. We just released them for IJmuiden Ver, so it's for the whole area, including IJmuiden Ver Gamma. And then now, I think this month, they will be kept out of the water for Nederwiek, so also for the whole area, for Nederwiek 1, 2, and 3. And we are also already conducting some mid-ocean campaigns in Wind area, which you see on the right-hand side. So there are 2 actually mid-ocean campaigns running there, one from GeoXYZ on the western part, and also from RPS on the eastern part, which will provide us some details about also the wake effects from the neighboring German wind farms. Left you see a picture of the RPS buoy, and on the bottom side you see a picture of GeoXYZ buoy.
Where they are the most of the time at sea, because there are some incidents happened.
Yes, some mechanical problems, that's right, but also they they get loose from their anchoring for some reasons, maybe some third-party incidents, but also from other failures. So at this moment we have them running, but it's sometimes we have a hard time getting them out of the water. That's or retrieving them from the island of Zilt, actually.
Okay.
So.
Are there any questions for these 3 gentlemen? And that can be also online, of course. Is there nobody with a question? No. And also online, it is silent. It seems that it's...
The mic was working, right?
I think so. Then I'm going to thank you for the presentation. Normally, we do not advocate for the movie industry, but this time it's a bit different. And we are all working in the North Sea, which is one of the busiest shipping routes in the world, and now also staged for a massive energy transition. And as you have seen in this sneak preview, also our largest natural area with a fascinating underwater world and marine life. The premiere of that movie will be in September in the cinemas, in the theaters, and beginning of next year it will be broadcasted on our national TV. So please all visit the cinema, visit the theater, and at least look at it when it's broadcasted on the television. And it is also a kind of warming up for the next session, which is on ecology and nature enhancement. May I ask Dagmar van Nieuwpoort and Niels van Houten on the stage. Dagmar,
yes,
welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah.
And also for you, a glass of water.
Yes, thank you.
Dagmar, you work for Rijkswaterstaat, Niels for the Ministry of, what is it called? Is it still called?
It is still
But you got an extra V.
We got an extra V, and the existing V is going to change from food quality to food certainty, which tells you a lot about the coming changes, I think.
Okay. Well, tell us about ecology and wind farm development.
I think you can start,
Yes,
right?
thank you. I will start out by telling you a bit about the WOZA program, so the Offshore Wind Ecological Program. As you can see in also the preview movie of the Wilde Noordzee, we got a lovely grand nature, well, not reserve, but nature place with the North Sea. And it's important that the offshore development is in balance with nature and ecology, also from nature legislation. So in the first parks, there was this monitoring and evaluation program, which was combined with the permits. And what was noticed is that a lot of the knowledge gaps were more of a general kind and mostly the same related to each of the parks. So in 2016, it was decided that there was a governmental research program needed to design and coordinate the knowledge development needed for these permits and also the rollout of offshore wind. We work from the precautionary principle. So if there's a lot of uncertainty, you take that for granted. And the research program is focused on reduce these uncertainties in order to make better decision-making based on knowledge. For this, we use models because we want to predict the cumulative effects happening over time. As you saw all the route maps, it's a really big plan that we have rolled out in order to develop on the North Sea. And it's important to model all those effects combined to have a good idea on what we are facing. So for these models, we need a lot of impact. I don't have a pointer to go further. Yeah, and also the knowledge that we develop is used in developing mitigation measures if it is decided that we don't have enough knowledge yet for good decision making. So a bit of background ecology for you guys. So our research topics are mainly based into 4 main principles, and that's which species, where they are at and what they're doing there, but also population dynamics in order to calculate the effects on the population caused by a pressure like offshore wind, but also what is the direct impact on these populations. So we do this through observations in offshore wind parks, but also on the sea to know where they are, what they're doing, but also following individuals for the dynamics and desk studies for international data or data that has already been generated in other programs, which are all combined in the models that we use to predict the impact on the population. So the successes so far that we have is we gathered a lot of ecological important information that we also can use in spatial planning to know which sites are most value or not, or how to do wind farm layout. Like I said, the cumulative effect assessment to see, okay, when wind parks are coming, is there going to be a border crossed or not? How is this all combined overview when looking at the future, so that we don't come into any unwanted, unwanted things that are coming up, and that we say, okay, we can't do it anymore, but to be more precautionary on beforehand on that. So we have a lot of insight on the ecological effects on birds. So collisions are we're coming to understand a lot more about, but also habitat loss and what the implications are for permitting on on the nature law. The effect of underwater noise is very important. We have the threshold implemented that we can also adjust based on the knowledge or not, and that needs to be mitigated or, well, not. And the mitigation measures, which are more operational in kind, so for birds and bats to prevent a lot of mortalities there, because there's a lot of uncertainty on those species. The permits could still be given when using those mitigation measures. So the current research priorities are to improve the understanding of the collisions even more, like how many are there, specifically when you really monitor it in field, because they're all based on predictions right now, but also for the bats to give more an idea of their behavior around the turbines and the actual impact of the bat collisions on the population. Also new foundation techniques, looking at vibropiling that's coming up. We need to have a better understanding on that in order to include it in the site decisions and the permits there. Like I said, bat collisions and their behavior in offshore wind, not only their migration and the curtailment that is now in place, but understand it even more. But also the indirect effects through the ecosystem changes are getting a lot more attention these days, and to how that works through the food web to these protected species. So where does the industry come into place? Well, I think it's a triangle of cooperation together, because we're working more like the understanding and the predictions and the environmental impact assessments, and also the long-term monitoring and the specific research. But looking at the industry, site-specific research could be very interesting, but also data sharing from all the studies being done. We have a close connection to the RVO studies you saw previously, but also things that are being monitored or implemented while building a wind park could be very interesting. But also looking at mitigation measures, which are inside the turbines or close to the turbines, is something that we can't particularly do, but if that's incorporated in the beginning of the offshore wind process, that is really nice to be doing. So why would we want to do this? Well, if we can go to a less worst case scenario, then permits are becoming better feasible. And by that we can continue the role of offshore wind. And by all doing this, also what you saw on the tenders and everything, and the Netherlands is really a world-leading pillar in the ecology and mitigation, also research concerning the environment, in order to get a good decision in balance with the nature law. So after all this frontal work is done, there's a lot of other nature-related topics, which are more to my colleague from LNV. So
yeah, thank you. So I work at the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality, and we are mostly involved with RVO, EZK, but also in the WOZEP Rijkswaterstaat programs, and try to help them and fund them as well. So the program Nature Enhancement of the North Sea is aiming to facilitate and better create a more healthy North Sea ecosystem, so it can really respond as a buffer. So we're kind of running out of ecological space. We have more shipping, more mining, and now also offshore renewable energy. And it puts a really large strain on the ecosystem. And that's why, similar to the nature-inclusive designs of the latest offshore wind farms, we try to give the local ecology a boost by restoring reefs, inserting oysters, and helping the local ecology to prosper. And it's complement to research and the work WOZEP is doing. So we don't really do mitigation ourselves, but we try to do beyond mitigation and do something extra for the local environment. And we try to do this inside, but also outside of the wind farms. We look at multi-use as well. Where can we locate which locations are the best for marine protected areas? But also outside of the sea, we have a lot of bird collisions, and how can we stimulate bird populations? And we are looking at on land raising locations for the chicks of the birds to stimulate the populations outside of the actual collision areas. And we're trying to do that with the government, but also NGOs. I think some of them are in this room right now, like from the rich North Sea, but also the North Sea Foundation, WWF, but also research institutes, and also some market players like Van Oort. But we're still looking for other stakeholders to be involved, but we will be in contact later as the program is still developing. And I think an important part of why we try to enhance the local environment is because we have also European legislation like the Birds and Habitat Directive, the Natura 2000, but also the guidelines of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. And like I said, we are getting very close to some species to touch upon their conservation status. And at that point, other offshore industries will have problems as well, and projects can be delayed. So by doing this, we try to create a buffer. And it's very important, I think most of you will probably understand. We have a large North Sea. There are no ecological boundaries like we have for the countries. So we try to cooperate with other countries through the inzake, the North Seas Energy Corporation, but also lately started the Greater North Sea Basin Initiative, the GNSBI, to try to come up with solutions together. Like the example I gave just before, we have the northern gannet seabird populations. They do not breed in the Netherlands, so we have to find ways to cooperate with Scotland because they have those birds, and so we can help each other. And I think the market has also a very important role to play in there because you are all on the front lines. You see what's happening out there, and I think we can help each other in that way.
Yep. So looking ahead, well, exciting but also really uncertain. Looking at some ecological boundaries that are being touched. Probably, but so it's a complex puzzle, and a lot of knowledge is already also always necessary, but also really important for RAD permitting. And the CAC 5.0 is on its way, and that will give us a lot of insight also for future research. So CAC is the cumulative effect assessment, which can give us more of an idea of where to focus next. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Now, this may have raised some questions with you. It's time for questions now. There are two. Yeah, the man in the back was the first.
Yes, thank you very much. Great presentation, by the way. I'm wondering, there's being a lot of research done, which is great, but I see it, only parts of it sort of slowly trickling down into real legislation and taking it in tender criteria. Do you see that is going to increase when future research is being put out?
Well, I think it's still trickling down. Maybe it's not that visible, but in the side decisions, all the knowledge that is being developed is being used, so it will land there. The tenders, I'm not really sure how that process works. I'm more on the research kind of part on that, but it trickles down to like the environmental impact assessments and mostly that part of the process.
There was a question here in the front, the third row.
Thanks for the presentation. Actually, my question is also relevant to what was already asked. So I was wondering whether the research that you do can be used as a benchmark for the government to evaluate the non-price criteria, that the developers actually submit for tenders. I think they're kind of used for that already, but I'm not really certain how that is, because people from our team are also involved in the content of some of the ecological tender criteria, but how that it's a whole process with a lot of other players drafting it up. So how exactly that is going to be used, that's I don't know. If you know something about it, Frederik? No.
WOZEP is indeed involved in drafting the ecological criteria.
Yeah.
So we take that into account, and then every time we try to take the next step in terms of ecology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main reason that I'm asking this question is because it's quite a qualitative kind of assessment, and at least to me, it's not really clear how decisions being made for each application. If it's quantitative, it's much more easier to understand, for instance, for the financial bit, but for qualitative, I'm more interested to know how this process actually is being done. Yeah, I don't know for myself, so yeah.
There's a question over there. Nothing online?
Okay.
My
name is Govert Meijer. I'm actually not giving you a question, but maybe a little bit of help in an answer. My company, GBM Works, is currently preparing for offshore tests with our silent installation method. We go there after summer, and together with TNO and other partners, we will measure close to our installations, but also farther away, on noise levels and, let's say, the hinder of mammals towards these installations. And results will be used to validate the models built by TNO. And I am pretty convinced, and I trust that these results will reflect in the tender criteria for noise in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
No, good to know that there is also technical innovation, and
yes,
in a way it doesn't surprise me, because I've always seen this as a kind of technical problem, but it's very hard to solve. There are 2 online questions. Angela, can you please mention them?
How do you expect KECT 5.0 to impact the upcoming tenders, IJmuiden Ver Gamma and Nederwiek I?
I have no idea.
That's at least a clear answer.
We don't know. We're working on it at the moment, and we'll see when the results are in.
Thank you. I have another question. The program Nature Enhancement is a great idea with important and interesting opportunities for industry to align and participate. What is your timeline for organizing this, and how do developers get involved?
That's a very, very good question. I think you can most likely, of the best ways to get in contact with either my colleague Jeroen Vis. We don't have his contact information here, but I think through Wind.
You can always send an email to woz@rvo.nl, and we will take care that it comes in the right place.
All government, so we're all talking to each other.
Sometimes.
We try to. So I think it's best to contact RVO. And yeah, for a timeline, we're still in development. I think I can't say for sure. I don't have the exact time schedule.
One last question here. Over here.
Hi, my name is Agnes Kellenberg, Shell Offshore Wind. Perhaps to build on the previous question on how KECT 5 would impact the upcoming tenders, I'm also a bit worried about the dilemma between the rollout of offshore wind versus the ecological impact that the North Sea can actually handle. And then particularly towards also the fallback mechanism that is considered. Because as we understood, it is not possible to combine qualitative criteria with a financial vangnet or the protection mechanism. But if we would then go to an auction, a straight auction, how do you then guarantee that actually the future rollout of offshore wind fits within the ecosystem of the North Sea?
Yeah.
No. We're not directly involved with the tender.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the tender is, if I may so, the tender is not the only thing. There is also a wind farm site decision with the permit conditions. So if there are no qualitative criteria involved, it doesn't mean you can do just anything.
No, Ruud is correct that indeed we have other mechanisms to support each ecological measures like the site decisions, but also all the research that WOSAP is doing. But indeed, that's a big disadvantage of having such a fallback option in terms of subsidy, and that's why we're also hesitant, because we really see that ecology is a big issue, and we would really like to, together with you, to see how we can improve the nature, the state of the nature.
Okay, that was it for now. Niels, you were talking about cooperation in that enhancement program. I think cooperation has always been one of the key success factors in the whole rollout of offshore wind energy. One of the parties you work here is in the room. That is the foundation of the rich North Sea. Margot, where are you? You are there. And then I borrow your mic. The foundation, the rich North Sea. What is that for foundation and what is it doing?
The Rich North Sea program is a program of the North Sea Foundation and Natuur Milieu. So we're a program, not a foundation. And we have the dream to have more biodiversity in the North Sea by using actually the energy transition as a flying wheel? Yes, to ensure that there's a very healthy and biodiverse North Sea.
Okay, very good that you're cooperating in this program. More people should do that, more parties should do that. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
You may give them a hand, of course. The last part. No, not really the last part. The last part is a networking drinks, of course. But the last part here on stage. May I ask on stage, Karin van Heimen, Jim van Keulen, and Mathé again, Mathé Breider. Yes. So, the only thing I can offer is water. It's very nice water.
Yeah, it's native water.
There's also too much water on
Native
the
water
stage
is very
because
good.
right behind me there's a leak in the ceiling. So it's but anyway, Karin, I start with you. Next roadmap, let's say the roadmap beyond 2030. We are also already looking to 2050. What's going to happen? There have to be new areas to be designated. What's going to happen?
That's a very important first step. I brought a map. We are indeed looking in the spatial planning to see if we can designate more wind farm areas for the period after the 21 gigawatt roadmap. We have a very high ambition, I explicitly say 21 gigawatt roadmap for the period up until 2038. We are currently researching the possibility to designate new wind farm zones for a capacity of 23 to 26 extra offshore wind farms, gigawatt of offshore wind farm zones. They will be, hopefully everything goes well and according to plan, they will be constructed in the period 2033-2038, so right after the current roadmap. It's very important to continue the rollout of the offshore wind. That is the main incentive to start the partial revision last year. The majority of the wind farms should come in the 6-7 area. I don't have a pointer, but it's right on top over there, the beautiful kite. It seems like a very large area, about the size of North and South Holland together. But we also have other stakes at sea, and we have 2 smaller areas, Laaglanden, which is currently under the current North Sea program already a designated wind farm zone, but with a lot of mining activities. And we have the Doordewind West area. This will be an extra addition to the already existing Doordewind area. But as I mentioned, there are other stakes. There have been a lot of letters and reports in the last period, but one important one is the OVV report for the shipping safety. So to come to new wind farm zones, we need to adjust the shipping lanes. Mining activities are taken into account, so both the production of oil and gas, but also new developments such as the storage of CO2, but also probably in the future, hopefully, the storage of hydrogen. And of course, there are impacts on the environment, which have already been mentioned, ecology, and all these effects are currently researched in the strategic environmental assessments. I like the abbreviation, the C. And we will publish, I think, next week or the week thereafter, the research agenda, the final research agenda. And based on that, we will come to a draft partial revision, which will probably be published in the early next year, in early 2025. And well, you're all welcome to share your thoughts on this design, so we can integrate them into the final partial revision, which is expected by the summer of 2025. Shall I continue?
Yeah, well, you mentioned these mining activities.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds to me always a bit contradictional. You know, we want to implement offshore wind and want to fade out oil and gas, and now oil and gas is also hindering offshore wind. So what is the policy here?
The policy is that there are both national stakes. They are both very important. We still need oil and gas. And at the same time, we need to develop the new forms of sustainable energy. So these developments go hand in hand, and it's quite challenging because the mining has a different way of developing their activities and getting permits than offshore wind has. We work through the North Sea program, where we get the wind farm zones, then we get permits, and it's all planned. And for the mining activities, we have in this partial revision special attention for these activities to really find out what's going on and where, and which development should we really take into account in the designation of the wind farm zones. And yeah, we are looking into all options, so current platforms, but also possibilities for new platforms for CO2 storage. And there's the challenge, they need to be accessible. So I also brought this drawings of what it looks like to access a platform by helicopter. People, they ask me, hey, a helicopter can go up and down, right? But if you are flying at, well, you see here, 1,500 feet is the usual flight height. It's 500 meters. You can imagine if you drop down to a helicopter platform straight, that it's not very comfortable. And if you have to work on the platforms for several hours, I think there are many people here who have experience offshore. It's not very comfortable, and I can also say it from my own experience that the landing, a slide landing, is way more comfortable. But you can also see that if you are at 1,500 feet and you want to descend to a platform, that there's a wind turbine of, well, 1,000 feet, which is permitted under the current permits. Then it's in the line of descent. So we are currently working very hard to find ways to have a safe accessibility of the platforms, but with less space. So we are doing a lot of research currently. for the helicopters, so they can land to the platform. But they also need space for the emergency procedures. For example, if you see that you're coming to a platform and it's already taken, you need to. There's already something on the landing spot. You need to fly up again, take a circle, and try again. But that also requires space. Usually, the standard procedure, what is being flown by mining operators on the North Sea, is an airborne radar approach. This requires 5 to 6 nautical miles all around the platform to have it accessible from all directions. Other procedure that is used is according to visual flight rules. So you can that's only possible if the weather is good, so you can really see where you're going. But we are also looking into the possibilities of a new procedure. It's not really new. It's allowed by law, by European law, but there's not much experience with it. It's called the point-in-space procedure. It's based on a GPS methodology, so you can fly on the automatic pilot close by to the platform, and it will save you a lot of space. You can fly in, you need a circle of about 2.5 nautical miles instead of 5 to 6 nautical miles. So since it has not been done a lot, we need to get experience with it. So we are currently doing also a trial for the K13 platform to see if we can make it work, and it has a lot of potential. And the less space all activities require, the more we can fit in. So we are very positive that this will be really helpful in fitting in all the activities offshore.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think that is the my main message.
Okay.
And,
then we switch to Jim, because well, having a designated area is one thing, and putting a wind farm there is also something, but then we need also infrastructure to connect it not only to our own energy system, but also internationally. So Ministry is working on this energy infrastructure plan for the North Sea. What is the progress?
Yeah, the progress has been that we've worked on this for quite a while now. The plan has been announced late 22 by our current minister. And what was interesting is that we checked whether the goals set for this long term, so 2040, 2050, 50 gigawatts and 70 gigawatts, which is enormous. We're now currently going from 10 years, 4.5 gigawatts, scaling up. We're in the middle of it, and we're already looking ahead beyond this period of time, 2030, 2050. And we see that it's going to be very challenging to reach these targets. It can be done, and we will go for that, of course. But it might be that the targets might move a little bit in time, as we've seen with the current roadmap as well. So yeah, that was, I think, one of the most surprising conclusions so far. So what we have done is we've worked with a consortium of consultants that they will advise us, and we will use their advice for working out our own plan. So we've currently finished that milestone. We've worked with them together for 9 months. It was a consortium of Deloitte, Common Futures, Northern Rose Fulbright, and Mott MacDonald. So we've gained their reports. We've published them on the June 6th, together with a letter to Parliament. Yeah, that's the where we are right now.
And are there any surprisingly decisions made already based on this advice?
Yeah, so in the letter we've sent, we've given a small appreciation of some of the main conclusions, which were, of course, that there's a gap foreseen in the supply chain, and the other part is that hydrogen is playing a pivotal role in reaching our goals. But on the other hand, it's still very immature, as has been said a couple of times today. But we're working on getting that train rolling. So what I want to highlight today is 3 of the decisions that have been made within this letter. First is that we're going to look into how we can mandate TenneT to start ordering and make additional reservations for the first couple of wind farms after the roadmap that goes for 21 gigawatt, because we've seen that the time that is needed to obtain this the infrastructure elements has been going up. So you need to start early if you want to secure the supply chain, which we have done, or TenneT has done quite well until now. The second part is about the infrastructure for hydrogen. So we've tasked juni to start working out these scenarios which have been laid out by the consultants. So we've picked a few of them, 3 for repurposing of gas infrastructure with the NOGAT and the NGT pipelines. And 1 scenario we're also going to look into is building new pipelines. The third one being the energy hubs. So we all know we need energy hubs in this area that you already pointed out. 6-7 is really far away. We're going to produce hydrogen. So we need energy hubs to collect, convert, store, and also be able to connect interconnections, both for hydrogen and both for electricity. So we need to work that out. We've been researching that for a few years already, so we thought it would be nice, and we now have enough information to make a decision. So we're not going to build an energy island as, well, some other countries are considering or have started in Belgium. So we're going to do that with platforms, because this area is it's quite tricky to build an island there, because the water depths are just very large compared to other areas. But we keep an open mind for future search areas after 2040 that might be interesting to build an island, because you have some other functions that you can add to this type of construction. So yeah, these were the 3 main or most significant decisions that have been made, and yeah, the rest will follow later.
Yeah, that means that this debate on platforms or islands is already going on for many years, but for the first hubs, it's clear it will be platforms.
Correct.
I'm sorry, dredges. The next steps, because...
Yeah, so to finalize my points that I want to bring in today, as I said, we've reached this first milestone of having these reports. They're online, as I said. You can read them. It's a few hundred pages, so good luck with that. But it is quite interesting, and we're gonna.
We will also share the slides and this stream so that they don't have.
Yeah,
to
very
read it
well,
all.
very
So,
good. We're gonna work on our own plan, which we will deliver early next year. It will give a roadmap, sort of say, not a new roadmap for areas, but a roadmap with decisions spread out over time to provide some insight of what is coming, when to expect it, and in that way we try to provide as much stability and be predictable at the same time. And on the other hand, we will have some sort of flexibility, because a lot of is uncertain, especially towards 2050, and we will keep in touch with stakeholders amongst you here in the room, Net Zero, the NZO. We are doing market consultations. We've done some already, and some of them are going on for the energy hubs, for the market arrangements and things like that. And then I'm forgetting one. Well, we'll stay in touch with everyone. And if you feel like one of the topics has not been discussed yet, please reach out to me or one of my colleagues, or through the email that you've mentioned a couple of times already.
thank you. Now, if we talk about the long-term goals, and the long-term perspective, it always starts with letters to Parliament and reports and etc. And I think the first steps really out in the sea is done by RVO. Are you already busy in the search areas?
Yes, sure, because if you look at this... Am I
Yes. Now it's working.
If you look at the scheme, these are all the site investigations we do for a wind farm area. It takes about 3 to 4 years. So we cannot wait actually for the partial revision, because if we want to have a tender for Doordewind in 2027 as scheduled, so we have to start already. So that's why we plan ahead, and we also are already busy in new wind farm zones in doing some investigations. For example, also a geophysical campaign for Doordewind area. It's planned to have maybe the western area of Doordewind as well. So what we thought, okay, we can be more effective if we do the whole area at once. So here we have this area, including the western part, and we have 3 different contractors. You see on the bottom, Fugro, GTEC, and it's
a third one.
No, it is, yeah. It's yesterday there was the kickoff at the Sunco Swift, but it's what are they called? PGS, right? Indeed.
Thank you.
And PGS is doing actually a very special survey, because they're doing a 3D survey. The eastern part of the area is now divided into one seabed survey done by GTEC, but also a 3D survey for 300 square kilometers. And a 3D survey, and it's something new, because we have done this a little bit before on smaller areas. This is really a very large area. And the western part is done by Fugro. It's a 2D UHR survey. But that gives also a lot of complications in, well, they just started, so there are a lot of activity in that area going on. We also have the Met-Ocean campaigns, the squares in the area, so a lot of sim-op operations.
Also fishermen?
Not so much as in the western areas, like Nederwiek and IJmuiden, but yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah. And then looking to the search area 6-7, that's what we also already started some investigations, because especially for the Met-Ocean campaign, we already started it in Lage Landen as well. We hope it will be designated again or reconfirmed. Because we started already the investigation there, the Met-Ocean campaign. And also in search area 6-7, we started with a Met-Ocean campaign. So we just had a kickoff with the 2 contractors. It's Aeolus and Fugro. In the left bottom part, you see these 3 points where we will start this Met-Ocean campaigns, and with the Aeolus and the Fugro boys. And that will give us some more insight. But we started it already, because we have 2 years of campaign, and then we have to assess the data, etc. So to be ready for 6-7, it must be done already. So that's what we already started right now. Yeah, and maybe some other interesting topics.
Well,
yeah.
Are there any new studies? Because
Yes.
you showed this portfolio, which is quite...
What we see right now is that we have a lot of areas, of course, and we get more and more information that there will be more wake effects from neighboring wind farms. We see it already on Doordewind. It's close to the German border. There are German wind farms, so that's why we started already those 2 campaigns there, to see if there are any differences. And also in 6-7, yeah, there will be some wake effects. So what we did is now started a new kind of study, the wake study. But it's we hope it will get we will get some more insight in what the effect will be. Will it be 10 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers? What will be the effect, etc. So
we're not talking about the internal effects in the wind farm, but
it's
the
from
wake
wind
effects
farm
between the wind farms.
Yes, exactly, because it's have a lot of impact on the annual energy production. And we thought it would be smaller, but now the studies show that it will be larger. So we just contracted a new firm to do this wake study for us, and to see if they can model in a better way what the effect will be from wind farm to wind farm. And this has to be validated in some way. So that's why we also started another kind of study. That's the atmospheric stability profiler. And that will give us more insight in the boundary layer. So there will be some effect on the layers in the air. So what we will try to see if there are more effects on the stability, and that can be measured by the temperature. So we try to measure also in a vertical way the more temperature levels to see if there are more effects. This is just starting right now, so we have to get into this a little bit more, but this will also give us the validation for the wake study as well, so that we started already these 2 studies.
Yeah, I see a lot of people reacting on this because there are more and more awareness of that there is something more to do with wakes than we have ever thought. That's
yeah, and we also get the effect from the English or the UK wind farmers as well, especially for Nederwiek. So we want to know, and it's for the developers, but also for the ministry to see how much production you can get out of the wind farms.
Thanks. Okay. Time for questions. 1, 2. But here, right in front of you, is the first.
Jacob Fleumer, HSM Offshore Energy. We build platforms. Yay. I have 2 points. First of all, I think with relation to new platforms, we see a clear tendency that most of the platforms are designed for boat access, so no longer with the heli deck. So I guess for future developments that is beneficial, because it doesn't have the sort of helicopter problem that you just described. Another point, as I was attending the RVO market consultation earlier this year about the search area 6 and 7, where I guess the first hydrogen production was planned to be around 2032, 2033. In view of the fact that the demo 2 has been shifted towards 2033, what do you reckon is the benefit of the demo prior to building this in large production offshore hydrogen?
That's for me, I guess, but feel free to come in. You asked about the benefit of having the demonstration projects. I think without the demonstration projects, we will have it will take even longer to scale up on hydrogen offshore. So I think we have to be very happy that they're here and that we can take lessons, takeaways for the development or scaling up. And yeah, I think we really need those to see if it's possible offshore and how we can,
What I actually meant is how long do you think does a demo need to be in place before you can start the large-scale production? Should it be 2 years, 3 years? Do you have a clue?
Well, by my hesitation, you could say I don't have an exact answer on that. I think you can, in the steps towards it, having the demonstration project, you can already have some lessons, talk with neighbor countries on standards and technical standards for platforms, etc. But then, yeah, you have to have some time offshore as well to have it in production to see what you're up against, how it goes against the elements and things like that. So I think, yeah, it would be good to have a few years experience to take that away to scaling up.
Thank you.
There was another question in the back.
Yeah, my name is Maarten de Vries, Roland Berger. Actually, I'm continuing on the question Jaco asked, because we just saw a map of the search area 6 and 7. Can you perhaps bring it back on the screen with these pipelines which go through this, the first slide you showed? No, it's the previous one, even further back. This one, yeah. What you see here is you see search area 6 and 7 in the top, and you see all these natural gas pipelines going through the search area 6 and 7. So to be more explicit about the question, is there any chance that in developing this search area, you will be able to benefit from these pipelines to get cheaper landing of your energy, because transporting energy with molecules through a pipeline is far cheaper than with electrons through a HVDC cable. And secondly, benefiting from the fact that these pipelines are already there, so you don't have any impact on the ecology in the Waddenzee, where you otherwise would have to put cables.
Jim, I think that's one for you.
Yeah, once again, so popular today. Thank you for your question. So what we've done is looking into different scenarios for the repurpose of gas infrastructure. I'm not sure which ones you're referring to right now, and it's a very bad picture I see now. But I think, yeah, we're looking into this because these exact reasons that we don't want to build a new pipeline if you can use an existing one. That's the very short answer. So I think, yeah, we can benefit from it, but we have to see within this process if they are also technically and economically worthwhile to repurpose.
In addition to that, there's only one pipeline going through the 6-7 area. It's really on top. And there's one nearby. So that is part of the research. To what extent can we reuse those pipelines? But there are not too many there. So we need to see if it fits. And we don't have that much choice, unfortunately, in that area.
Mm.
Another question here in the front, and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, Rob Smit from Statkraft. Perhaps a stupid question, but I'm standing now anyhow. So, question to Mate, if I pronounce you correctly.
Yes.
You've done a lot of surveys now for different areas, and I can imagine that you compare, for instance, the soil condition, the one and the other. Do we still need all these surveys, or is there a kind of general knowledge now that we know enough?
I don't think so, because we still need to do some investigations, but especially the 3D survey will provide us some more insights into the soil as well, to prevent all those boreholes that we are doing right now. But still, we have to do some investigations. It can be smaller, I think, in the future, but that also requires some innovation as well. But every time we do such a tender, we try to come up with some more innovations and to challenge the market to give a good bid. To be smaller, I don't know. You still have to know everything about the soil as well, and to see if you can put the turbines on it. What would help is that we would know in advance where the turbines would be placed. But that's something we don't know because we're so much ahead. But yes, I think in the future it can be smaller, yes.
There was another question over there.
Thanks for the presentation again. I forgot to introduce myself last time. So my name is Zahra Janipur from Rabo Research of Rabobank. My question is about development plans after 2030. Is there any floating wind in the planning? Or is it just, fixed bottom because of the shallow water?
Yeah, it is not very likely that there will be floating offshore wind in the North Sea due to the limited depth.
Are there all online questions? There are one. Okay, I'll come to you. But first this gentleman.
Hi, my name is Wouter Maas from Ramble. To Mate, could you say a bit more about the ecological baseline surveys and the plans that RVO has to also measure, let's say, the baseline ecology state?
Yes, we try to incorporate them into our surveys. So we do more and more in our, especially geophysical surveys, to do some water samples, soil samples, etc. And yes, we are trying to see if more is needed, but it's also in consultation with you to see if we need to do more. But yes, we started with the soil samples, and now we do water samples as well. So yes, we are improving.
Angela, what do we have online?
Will floating solar count to reach 2050 offshore energy ambitions?
I think I can try to answer that. Floating solar, well, we just heard about the 50 megawatt floating. We also have an ambition for 3 gigawatts of floating solar. We're looking into if it's feasible. So yeah, in that way, if for any reason offshore wind can't go any further, and or just offshore solar being one way to contribute to our energy targets, then there's definitely a possibility.
Okay, one last question maybe? No? Then I'm going to thank you, and you may give them a warm applause, of course. We're going to end this workshop. I have a question for you. We have, for each tender, always published a project and site description. We did that now in a new way, and there's a survey online because we want to have your feedback. So please look at that on our website and give us the feedback. The next workshop will be in Amsterdam in November. We're going to end with a trailer of the story of wind energy. Before we do so, we started this workshop this morning, of this afternoon, with the new political wind which is blowing, but there is also confidence that offshore wind is to be continued and not affected so much by that. We heard the winners of the tender of IJmuiden Ver, so the next 4 gigawatts, which is really huge, is going to be in preparation very soon now. The next tender for IJmuiden Ver Gamma and Nederwiek I is also being prepared. You heard that, and after the break, there was a lot of attention that we are working in the North Sea, that we are working in a nature environment, and that we have to take care of the biodiversity in the North Sea. And then in the last session, we looked a bit into the future, ending with, bear in mind, it works on wind, and we have to dive deeper into what are the wake effects, because that's going to affect, can have a lot of effect. That was the workshop. We start with some drinks and bites next to it. Thank you for coming. Also the people online, thank you for watching us, and see you next time.
In dit land veel kennis over water en wind bleek het veranderende klimaat al snel urgent.
We hadden natuurlijk helemaal geen ervaring met wind op zee.
Het energieakkoord is vanmiddag ondertekend nadat er maanden over is onderhandeld.
Er waren eigenlijk een paar elementen die cruciaal waren in dat akkoord.
Voordat ik überhaupt zat, toen was de vraag, ik heb gehoord dat jullie dat niet kunnen. Je hebt 3 kwartier om uit te leggen dat jullie het wel kunnen.
Als je bij het realiseren van dit soort projecten tegenover elkaar komt te staan, dan komt er niks van terecht.
We hebben voor het eerst nu als Nederland ook bedacht, hoe ziet ons energiesysteem van de toekomst eruit?
Alleen dat kunnen we niet zonder de natuur.
De uitrol van windenergie wereldwijd is nog maar net begonnen.
Dit is het verhaal van wind op zee.